I was walking through the fixed department the other day and I saw this case and thought I would take a closer look at it to see what was going on, because it had a couple different pieces of paper taped onto the side of the box, which usually means there's an issue. So here's the original impression that came from the doctor. It is a quadrant plastic tray impression for a 3-unit bridge. You can see our little soft tissue material in there. When we pour it up again and make our soft tissue model, we will leave that on there so we can take into account compression of the ponic against the soft tissue. And it's an okay impression. We can see a lot of what we need to see. A couple little questionable areas here and there, but it's probably going to be okay. You've probably heard me say before that on a bridge like this, we'd prefer to have a full arch impression. And it's interesting because when you look at the case itself, here is the impression that we got from the doctor for the bridge, and then of course we got a full arch impression. It was an alginate on the opposing arch, and so we're left with a full arch upper impression and not a full arch on the lower. And so here's another good example of us trying to line up the bite using some marks with the included bite registration. But had we in fact had a full arch impression on the lower, we could have hand articulated a lot of things over on this side too, really just to kind of help us verify that the bite's correct. So it's an interesting situation. You walk by and see a case where you've got a quadrant on the side where you've actually got the prep, and then a full arch across from it, and it's like, oh boy, if only we would have had that full arch on their lower as well. So anyway, not something that I really wanted to point out on this case. It's just odd to kind of see that. But when we actually pour up the model, the doctor had requested a metal tryon for this 3-unit bridge, and so the metal tryon went out to the doctor and it fit. And there's a small kind of path of insertion issue. You've got to really get the molar in there first, and this will happen a lot on those, but kind of drops down into place. And the margin looks closed. The margin looks good here. By the way, when it came back from the doctor, it said that they had made some adjustments to the top of this because space was tight with the crown across from it. So that's your first clue that you're going to be limited in terms of interocclusal space, and that maybe there wasn't enough reduction when the metal tryon by itself has to be reduced to leave room for ceramic. So that could end up being a metal occlusal, but it was tried into the mouth and things fit well, except at the time the doctor tried it into the mouth, they noticed that the margin was supragingival, and there might have been some additional recession that occurred after this. So when the doctor tried in the metal framework, the doctor went ahead and actually dropped the margin down the rest of the way to the gingiva in the patient's mouth, but did not take a new impression. And so what the doctor actually sent back was a photograph of the new preparation. So you can see that the doctor has taken a photograph and is showing us with the perio probe the 2 millimeters that they dropped the new margin down to the gingiva. And so basically what they asked for was, could you please take porcelain and extend it all the way down to the new margin here, as opposed to taking a new impression and we would make a new metal framework that came all the way down to the gingival margin. So it was a kind of an odd request that the margin was dropped down here, and could you just add porcelain? As you might imagine, that's a lot of unsupported ceramic material hanging off beyond where this margin is. There are times where we could do this. If you do a deep shoulder for us here, we can certainly stop the metal short of that shoulder and then do ceramic material. But in a case like this, to have the metal stop here and just kind of hang off another, I guess that looks like maybe 1.5 millimeters, 2 millimeters of ceramic off the end of that bridge, that's a recipe for disaster. And this porcelain material is just going to fracture off of there. So we had to call the doctor back and say, good idea. But I tell you what, let's do this. Get the patient back in one more time. Sorry to make you do that. But let's take a new impression of the new gingival margin down here at the free margin of the gingiva. And if you send us that, we'll be able to make you a bridge that fits. So I point this out because this is really the first time I can ever remember where I saw a dentist try in the metal framework, have it fit, and then drop the margin down even farther. And instead of offering to take a new impression, just say, I tell you what, can you drop down some extra porcelain off of here? I included a measurement with a perio probe to help you guys see what you were doing. So kind of a wacky solution from the doctor, but once we called the doctor back and explained it, the doctor was more than happy to take a new impression, and we look forward to getting that new impression from the doctor.